The globalists are overrunning the West with third world populations. Why are they doing this?
Well, it's two things we need to know to get a perspective on the world is where this cabal wants to take the world and then the methods they use to take us there. And where they want to take the world, of course, as we well know, is to a global fascist dictatorship with the end of countries, the end of borders, where basically you just have the world government dictating to massive regional blocks, and anything below that is just irrelevant. And one of the great barriers to that happening is the people's sense of their own culture, their own country, their own sovereign nation, if you like. And because people, if they have a real sense of country, and I'm not saying that I'm into all this, but a lot of people are, and this is the point from the cabal's point of view, they will resist giving that power away, say from the United States to the North American Union, in Britain to the European Union. And so the idea is to break down that sense of culture by basically breaking down the culture. And you do that by opening borders to other cultures. Now, I'm not saying one culture is better than another. I'm just trying to explain here what they're doing from their perspective. And that you let different cultures pour into the same area, and suddenly it becomes a cocktail. And there is no single culture anymore that people can identify with, and that is all the time loosening and weakening people's sense of need to resist the giving away of sovereignty to unions and to a world government, because they've lost the sense of culture that they had before. See, this is why what we're talking about here is happening all over the world, because, of course, it's a global agenda. In Europe, the European Union has brought down the borders all over Europe, and every time another country comes into the European Union, their borders come down, and the borders between them and every other country comes down. And so from Eastern Europe, for instance, people pour into Western European countries, and it becomes, again, exactly the same thing, a cocktail of cultures, which eventually becomes just nothing that really is something people can identify.
And the globalists can also play those different groups off against each other. Not only will they give up their rights, but then I see the trendies always counter back. Oh, well, it's like Star Trek, which we know is predictive programming. We'll all be unified in love. But this isn't some loving world government that we decided to lovingly join. This was covertly built. They now admit it was a covertly built, and it's authoritarian, dehumanizing, and its admitted end game is global depopulation.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a very, very interesting point, a very important point about playing one off against the other. You know, the people that pour from the poorer countries into the richer countries through the borders coming down are just as much pawns in this game as those in the countries, the indigenous population that are affected by that. It's not good guys and bad guys we're talking about here. It's different aspects of the human race being used as pawns in the same game. And this is why, instead of fighting each other, we need to start looking at what unites us all, which is the fact that we're all the target of this cabal, this global fascist dictatorship in the making, and the very fast making. I mean, we have proof in this country a few months ago now, that during the Blair administration, they were allowing people, immigration into Britain, on a scale they weren't admitting to. It came out, one of the people involved blew the whistle on this, and what they were actually saying is they wanted to have so much immigration into Britain that it would, this is the quote, change British society forever. And in that one quote, we have the prime reason for bringing the borders down. This is what they've done in Europe. I mean, the government here now, the new government of Cameron, saying, oh, we must slow down immigration into Britain, but they don't say immigration. They say non-EU immigration, because they have absolutely no power whatsoever because of the European Union laws now and the giving away of sovereignty to stop anybody coming in from the European Union into Britain. And that's exactly the position they want. They're doing the same in America, of course, as listeners to this program will well know. And so anyone that challenges this, in America, for instance, they're called racist, and they're targeted by the federal government, as we're seeing in some states of America who try to make a stand on this. And it's all orchestrated to break down and destroy a sense of what is America, of what is Britain, of what is all these countries that are targeted.
But it is opening vast new markets for entrepreneurs in this country. Look at Russia. Compare the United States with our, first of all, driven by immigration and now more recently by native births. And the vast majority of Hispanic babies, for example, are citizen-born now. Compare that to Russia, where they've had no influx, no energetic young population moving in. Russia went from 148 million people during the height of the Soviet Union to 141 million. It's down 7 million people. The population is aging. Our population, but for the new immigrants and the Latino population, this bubbling up of these youngsters, would be aging also. Who would support Social Security, for example?
Well, no, look,
as we age out, or Latino people, Hispanic people in this country are inherently socially conservative. They go not change. But the complexion of the country, and for the first time in human history, will become darker. Of that, there is no doubt. This is a demographic reality. But it
Anti-racism today, as used by respectable conservatives and liberals, means that every white country on earth, and only white countries, have to bring in large numbers of non-whites from the third world and integrate with them. The universal statement of both respectable conservatives and liberals is that this will solve, quote, the race, unquote, problem. This race problem does not exist in Asia, does not exist in Japan, does not exist in Taiwan, does not exist in Africa. Nobody expects black countries to bring in huge numbers of non-blacks and integrate with them in order to solve some race problem. So it doesn't really take a nuclear scientist to figure out that solving the race problem means solving the white problem. To repeat, if a group of countries were randomly selected as the ones on Earth which had to bring in people of another race, and those countries were Jamaica, all of Africa, in fact, every black country on the face of the earth, and everybody were to say, we're not going to bother anybody else, but you have to solve the race problem by bringing in lots and lots of non-blacks, integrating with them. I don't think it would take very long for people to figure that whoever was doing this really hated blacks. So today, when a respectable conservative, or Bill O'Reilly, or Sean Hannity, or whoever else is allowed to talk on national television, he always agrees with the liberals that the race problem must be solved, and that these countries with a race problem must bring in lots and lots of third worlders and integrate with them. And once again, these countries with this race problem are always white. Every white country and only white countries. It doesn't take a nuclear scientist or a brain surgeon to figure out what the underlying theme here is. It is called genocide.
The impossibility of making even a dent is actually worse than it looks here. Because last year, when we took 1 million immigrants, these countries added, births over deaths, 80 million more people into the impoverished populations. And this year, Congress is bringing in 1 million legal immigrants. And this year, according to the United Nations, these countries are expected to add another 80 million people. And next year, you can be quite sure that Congress, unless stopped by the American voters, will bring in another 1 million immigrants. And these countries, unfortunately, will be adding another 80 million people into these impoverished nations. We could take 5 million a year, but we'd never get ahead of what's happening in these countries. Not